All right, so how to tell if you are dating somebody who has borderline personality disorder. Uh, what are some of the telltale signs? So first, let me say that this video channel is dedicated to partners or ex-partners of borderlines, people who have borderline personality disorder. Bear in mind, I am not a licensed psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am just another person like you who has been in a relationship with somebody who definitely was borderline. If you are somebody who has borderline, this channel is not directed at you, but you're welcome to be here. Bear in mind that we're trying to recover as best we can. And since we don't know what it's like to be borderline, we're doing our best to understand. So we may not get it right. We may say things that aren't accurate, but it's important for us. And sometimes everybody needs to have understandings that may or may not be accurate because it helps us to heal and to separate. So don't take it personally. And that's the truth with anybody. Don't take any of this personally. No, this is just my experience. You don't have to agree with it. It's okay if you have a different feeling. I'm going to stick to my opinions probably, but that's just because I'm an opinionated asshole. And you don't have to take that personally. You're free to agree or not agree as you see fit. And so, how do you know that you are dating somebody who has borderline personality disorder? So, first and foremost, what I recommend that you do, if you think that's the case, is you should go and investigate what the mental disease of borderline personality disorder is. There's no shortage of messed up people out there that have all kinds of screwed up things and are, really bad uh, partners and hurtful for all kinds of different reasons. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have borderline personality disorder. I myself have had no shortage of problem, people. I have an ex-wife that, I complain about all the time. She definitely had borderline traits, but there's a huge difference between borderline traits and borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is there's all different kinds of borderlines. There's quiet borderlines and there's rageful borderlines, and some of them are more narcissistic than others, and some of them are more, they're quiet and they run away, and some of them yell and scream, and some of them are less functional than others. There's a spectrum. Some of them are very high functioning, and some of them are not, and they suffer from other things like PTSD and depression, and they could have multiple things going on. So bear that in mind. Now, what is it that makes the borderline, and not just somebody with bipolar or something else? The borderline, the behavior is that the main thing about them, as I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, but based on my experience and my research, the main thing that makes them borderline in their behavior is that they vacillate between loving you and hating you, idealizing you and devaluing you. Your experience is that they can go from hot to cold in an instant. They can go from loving you and showering you with kisses to yelling at you and screaming at you and coming at you with a knife. They can be that intense, or like in my case, they can go from loving you and saying you're the best person in the world to the next day telling you how they can't be with you because you're too dangerous for them to be around and they can never see you again. Or in my case, have the best like phone sex, and then the next day you get an email or a phone call saying, I had a bad dream. I don't know what it is, but I can't be with you. Whatever it is, and anywhere in that spectrum, they are going from one extreme to the other. And the way it's described is they go from making you their favorite person. So that's important. And in my case, those words actually were used. Literally, you are the best. You are the best person. You're the best person because you do all the good things. It's a quote. And then going from you are the best person who does all the good things to I can't be around you, you're trying to destroy my self-esteem. That is what you're dealing with borderline personality disorder. Then, when they discard you, and they'll either discard you by disappearing on you, you don't know where they went, they'll cheat on you, they'll call you the next day, they'll write you a letter, they'll yell at you, and like I said, whatever it is that they do to discard you, they will then make it impossible for you to talk to them or connect to them or whatever it is. They may dump you for somebody else. They may have already started cheating on you with somebody else, and then when they've got that situation, stable, then they'll dump you for them, and it'll be like that, over and done with. No progression. It's just one day you're together, next day it's over. Then there's this thing called hoovering. So the other thing that happens with borderlines is that when they've discarded you, when they've devalued you, when they've broken up with you, cheated on you, whatever the hell it was that cut the relationship, then it may take some time, and it may feel like forever for you, because part of what happens is you become addicted to them. You become addicted to their what's called love bombing. They come at you and they just shower you with love and adoration in more than you've ever experienced in your whole life. You become addicted to that. Now, they probably don't consciously know that. Maybe they do. But on an unconscious level, they're still attached to that. They still can feel what's going on with you. You're going to feel like when you get discarded, it's going to take a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. During that time, you're going to go through hell. You're going to have lost what you thought was the best love of your life. You will be thinking about them all the time. You'll be obsessed with them. You will be second guessing yourself as to what you did wrong and why they left you and what you could have done differently and how you can get them back and if they'd only let you back. And then you're going to start to kind of get some strength in you again. You'll start to come to some acceptance that maybe it's really over and that they've moved on. Then guess what happens? They're going to magically reappear. And they're going to hoover you back, which is, suck you back in, like a vacuum cleaner. They're going to hoover you back in. And when they hoover you back in, they're going to do and say whatever it is that's going to appeal to you, whether it's going to make you feel sorry for them, whether it's going to make you feel like they've apologized, whether it's going to make you feel like you now see that they've changed and they're not going to do it again. Whatever it is, they're going to pull you back in, and then they will idealize you for a while, and then same thing will happen. Now, this can happen for some people just over and over and over and over. This can last for years. There's people on here who've been married to borderlines. I was lucky. It didn't last but just a few months for me. But I can see, had I not had the training that I had and been to all the therapy and all the 12-step and all that stuff that I had done all my life, if I hadn't had that, I can see that probably I'd still be with her. And she'd probably just be feasting on my soul. I say words like that in case you're a borderline. I say things like feasting on my soul. That's my experience. That may not be your intention. But it's important for the codependent. This is what you need to understand. If you are in a relationship or have been in a relationship with a borderline, you are without a doubt a codependent, which means that you are what they're looking for. They don't want a normal person. A normal person won't be attracted to them. Normal, by normal, I mean healthy, emotionally healthy. psychologically healthy. A psychologically healthy person will not be attracted to a borderline, and a borderline will not be attracted to somebody with strong boundaries. They're attracted to you because you don't have good boundaries, and so that's why you're a tasty treat for them. They're also a tasty treat for you, but that's for another video. Anyway, so a borderline is somebody who's going to vacillate between idealizing you and devaluing you, which you may experience as loving you or hating you, or in my case, loving you and then very calmly just deciding to end it for no apparent reason. You, if you're with a borderline and things, even when things are good, you're constantly on edge, constantly trying to make sure that you don't upset them. You may not even be conscious of it, but things happened in the very beginning where you became trained by them to always make sure that you held them up and you made them feel good. In my case, I'm now remembering. That's one thing that's good about these videos is I'm remembering a lot of stuff that I had forgotten. She got her sense of happiness from me. And she made it very clear in the beginning that she wanted a strong personality, meaning she wanted somebody who exuded positivity and felt good and felt strong. And she would get that from me. Now, in the beginning, that sounded really great. Oh, I'm looking for a strong male, masculine. Oh, that makes me feel good. It makes me feel big and strong and masculine, and I like that. But what was really going on is that she was constantly dealing with feeling uncomfortable and anxious and insecure inside of herself. And what she was doing is that she was literally feeding off of my, whatever power she felt was exuding from me, which was my sense of self. And if I started to get uncomfortable, if I started to get unhappy, if I started to get cranky, if I started to get anything other than the guy who's in charge and is comfortable and powerful and happy, if I was anything other than that, she would start to come apart. Now, in the beginning, this happened very subtly, and I got the message very quickly that I always had to be in a good mood and make her feel good. That was my job. And so I could do or say anything that would set her off or make her uncomfortable, and she would give me some kind of sign or communication to let me know that, which would then put me into playing the role of having it all together. Now, of course, none of this happened on a conscious level. It's negotiated on an energetic, unconscious level. You may have no idea that it's happening, but you know that you're with a borderline because even when you're being love bombed, even when they're loving you, you're still constantly really insecure, making sure that you don't do anything that sets them off. And you're constantly in this state of wanting them to love you all the time. So they split on you. Splitting is a term that means that they go from idealizing you, loving you, to devaluing you, hating you, or walking away from you. The other thing is that if you really listen, the entire relationship will be based on how you make them feel in their mind. And I'm thinking back of all of the times that she hoovered me back in. So because I was codependent, when she left or when she, broke it off, I was shattered. My whole life was shattered because I had become addicted. I was codependent. And I didn't know how to live without her. Just saying a lot. I mean, just saying that now is just so strange because that's just not how I am. But she happened to hit just the right notes to bring that latent part of my codependency out in me. I forgot what I was saying. But when she would hoover me back in, it wasn't because she wanted to take care of me. She might say things like that, but the thing that drove her back would be, I remember that you're the good person. I'm remembering that you made me feel this way. I'm remembering that you did this for me, that you did that for me. And I was wrong. That was silly. She used the word silly. That was silly of me to end it because you really are the good person, and I'm remembering that you made me feel good this way and you did this thing and that. And after a while I started going, wait a minute, there's no awareness of wanting to make me happy. There's no desire to make sure that I'm getting my needs met, and that she, and I realized there was a difference, especially now as I look back on it, because, you know, as somebody who doesn't have borderline personality disorder, when I'm in a relationship, I really like the idea of giving to my partner and making them happy. I get a lot of pleasure out of seeing them being happy in themselves. They don't even have to know that I did anything. If I can do something and I can see that it makes them happy, just seeing them happy is enough for me. I don't need any acknowledgement. It's nice when I get it. It's nice to be appreciated for that, but I don't need it. She didn't ever have that. That never was part of her. That whatever things that she did for me, she did either out of guilt or out of a desire to get me to give her what she wanted. I'm not judging. We all do that. That's part of the human nature. But then there's this third aspect that borderlines don't have, which is a true empathic ability to actually give a shit about you just because of you. That's going to be there. So they're going to split on you. You're going to be responsible for them feeling happy all the time. And here's the other thing. You'll never figure out what it is that you have to do. In your mind, you're going to figure out, okay, I need to do A, B, C, D, F, and G. If I can just figure out, what the recipe is, and I get the recipe right, then it'll be okay. And one day the recipe will be toast and eggs, but the next day you come with toast and eggs, and that's the worst possible thing that you could have ever given them. So point being is that whatever it is they say they need you to be or do on day one will be meaningless on day two. So you will never know what it is that you did wrong. You'll never know what it is you're supposed to do. So that's the other one. When they split on you, when they get angry with you, when they devalue you, when they discard you, when they go from loving you to hating you, there will be no rhyme or reason for that either. That's something you need to understand. You're going to think, oh, it's because I said this. No, you can say this one day. You say the same thing the next day. It happens to be the thing that's the worst possible thing anybody could have said. So you need to understand that there's really nothing that you're doing. It's all coming from them. So there's a quote that I read, and I've read it in some of my earlier videos that really helped me. And it says that you need to understand that a borderline doesn't really see you. They don't see you. They don't see, however intuitive they may think they are, no matter how well they are at predicting what they think you're going to say or do, they don't see you at all. And the way it was put is, they see a fuzzy outline of you that they then fill with their own projections. So if they're feeling insecure, it doesn't matter what you do. That one thing you do will set off the insecurity that's erupting inside of them, which has nothing to do with you. Okay, so the last thing that you need to know, which is one thing I haven't heard from the experts, and I could be wrong, maybe some psychologists have said this, I haven't heard it, but it was revolutionary for me, because what you hear when you go and you research borderline personality disorders, you hear about everything I've just said. You hear about the splitting, you hear about them, it's their projection. They're projecting onto you their insecurities, that they're very unpredictable, that they engage in superficial relationships, but they don't go beyond that, and that it's impossible for them to attach and to love you back. You've heard all of that. But what I haven't heard experts say is that what it is that actually triggers them, what triggers them to reject you, is the actual intimacy. And this is, when I saw this, this was revolutionary for me. And it explained to me why one day I could say one thing and it would either have no effect or it would be fine. And then the next day I could say or do the exact same thing and it could be the one thing that pushed her over the edge and she could have nothing to do with me. It didn't make any rhyme or reason. There was nothing to it except one thing that if I took all of the splittings, all of her, whenever she split on me, it was always directly after there was real intimacy. That we had had a really wonderful time together, that we had a great communication, that we had really good sex, that I had done something for her or given her some real act of true love and intimacy. And the thing is, the ironic thing is that they seek that. They seek to stimulate the intimacy from you. It's what they want, but it's also the very thing that is so frightening to them. It's actually like death. It feels like it's killing them. And there's a whole reason behind that, which I won't get into. But if you're with a borderline, this is probably true with other types of, problems, but definitely what will happen is the borderline will split on you right after there's been some intimacy. And it could be just that they have a feeling they start to have real feelings of love for you. Which is why, if you you may not have done anything, they're just out of nowhere. Whatever the reason is that they think, because they really believe that what you just did. In my case, sometimes it was just a look in my eye. I'm not kidding. There was one time where she had a meltdown in front of me. And I must have had a thought, there must have been a look in my eye of what the hell is going on, or I remember consciously trying to have a neutral look on my face because I could tell she was in distress. But there must have been some random thought that went through my head, normal thought of what the hell is going on here. And then she reacted just to the look. I'm just remembering it now. I completely forgot about it. She looked at it. Later, when we talked about it, she said that that I had given her a look, and I said, "Tell me exactly what happened." And the way she described it was that she had said whatever she had said, and that I had gone, and I said, "That absolutely did not happen. I promise you. I was there. And what happened was, as you said it, and then literally a nanosecond later, you said, 'Don't look at me like that,' and walked away." That was because what was happening is that we were really starting to bond, and she was really starting to see that I was there for her and that she could be safe with me. Now, she wasn't consciously thinking that, but the intimacy brings up the intimacy in them that never got fed, and it strikes real terror in them. So the one thing that you can be sure of if you're with a borderline is after you have had real intimacy where they can feel how much you truly care for them, they will then completely, totally flip out on you. So, to recap, how do you know you're with a borderline? Number one, I didn't say this, it's going to be the best love you've ever had in your life in the beginning. It's perfect. In fact, it's too perfect. They are too perfect. They love you more than anybody ever has, and there's no downside to them. And that's when they're in the idealization phase, and they will just absolutely cover you with compliments and with adoring you and telling you you are literally the most amazing person that's ever walked the planet. You are the best thing. You love them more than anybody. You're the one. That's what happens in the beginning. Then they start to split on you, meaning they go from that state of loving you to hating you, wanting to be with you to not wanting anything to do with you, kissing you to yelling at you, or loving you and then disappearing. and you don't know where they are. In other words, it's just very extreme. It goes from really positive to either outright abuse or just complete discarding, depending on what kind of borderline they are. Because there's a whole range of them. There's borderlines that get angry. There's borderlines that put inward. There's all different kinds. But the one thing that doesn't change is one moment they love you, the next moment, nothing, zero. So they split on you. What else did I say? They hoover you back in. They wait until you get a sense of self, then they hoover you back in, and the cycle continues. And then I don't know what else I said, but and your third one, if I remember correctly, you will always be on edge trying to make sure that you are keeping them happy, and you will never feel comfortable even in the good times, because at any moment something may go wrong, and you're really trying to make sure that you don't set them off. And then the fourth one, and I think this is the most telling, is that you will see that they will split after every experience of true intimacy, whether that's an actual intimacy that you've had, or they will have an experience within themselves of starting to feel true love or true intimacy, and that will trigger them to find something wrong with you and make it your fault that they're so afraid. And again, they're doing that to protect themselves. So that's it. If that sounds like you, there's a good chance that you're with a borderline. My recommendation is to do research on borderline personality disorder. My next recommendation is then to look into codependence. Find out why you were attracted to the borderline and why they were attracted to you, because borderlines are not attracted to people who don't, at the very least, have latent codependence. Some people say, I've never been codependent. I couldn't have seen it coming. Well, it was in there. It just took a borderline to bring it out in you. So look into codependence, because you sought them out as much as they sought you out. It's a match made in hell. And then my recommendation is to get some therapy and start going to a 12-step group like CODA and start working through the steps. My experience is that those two things together is what creates the real long-lasting recovery. And I am telling you, you can recover. I am in a state of recovery right now. My life is, I'm having a great life. I'm having great romance and sex and all kinds of beautiful stuff that I wasn't having before. I feel wonderful about myself. I feel empowered. And to be honest, I can't even think about one thing about my borderline ex that sounds the slightest bit interesting to me. If you want that, that's how I did it. I did the 2 routes of therapy and the 12 steps. And I worked at them hard, and I shared my experience here with others. That's what did it for me. So I recommend, if it works for me, it might work for you as well. That's it. Good luck, and may you find your power again. May you find your love of life, and may you find your self-esteem. All right. Talk to you later.